Everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I actually want to talk on a little bit of a serious topic, one that I think some of you or most of you may have heard in the news lately, and it's the case of the Baton Rouge activist Sadie Roberts Joseph. And if you don't know, she was actually found murdered and stuffed in a trunk of a car. Now, when I first heard about it, the first headline I saw, I found this out on Instagram, and the first headline that I saw was Baton Rouge activist and African-American museum owner found dead in the trunk of a car, and more details surfaced in the post below. And it basically was stating that yes, she was an African-American museum owner. She was all about African-American history. She basically is an activist down in Baton Rouge, and she was just found murdered because her death was ruled a homicide. She was found murdered and her body was found in the trunk of a car. Now, of course, as you may have believed, as you may have thought, when I first heard about this, when people first heard about this, the main conspiracy was, oh yeah, it was definitely some racist white supremacist person that killed her because of her activism and because she was African-American museum owner and she was so here for black people and black history and African-American history. And honestly, I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't hold that past anyone. I also wouldn't hold it past because we have seen it before. We have definitely seen it before, especially during the civil rights movement. Our leaders or our activists or people who want to do good or well for black people, who fight against social cause, are going to be targets. So of course that is going to be the first thing that pops into people's minds. So I don't necessarily blame them for that. However, now more information has been found out, and we found out that it was man, I forgot his name, Jerome something. I totally forgot his name, but I will put that down in the description or somewhere in this video. But we found out that it was a black man who was not a registered sex offender, but he was supposed to be registered as a sex offender. And he was a tenant living in her building, and there was a dispute, I believe, over rent. And look, this is not the first time I've heard of people killing someone over rent or over being kicked out. So it kind of didn't seem, quote unquote, abnormal to me. But this is what I wanted to point out. Upon finding out and upon revelation that this man was the suspect behind it, they didn't even show his picture in the post I saw on Instagram, but they actually said that it was a man who was a tenant of hers who basically got into a dispute over rent or over late rent, and he was the one that killed her and put her in the trunk of his car. And here, lo and behold, the mush mouths and the pro-blacks, and I use quotes on that because I do not like calling these people pro-black. I think they do a disservice to the pro-black movement, and I think that their lack of critical thinking is going to get our movement, basically it's going to make our movement look bad. But these same quote-unquote pro-blacks, quote-unquote woke people who don't think critically and want to be a bunch of mushmouths, especially on the internet, they were the ones basically saying, nope, it wasn't this guy, it wasn't this black man, they're using this person as a cover-up. I did not even see this man's picture. I did not see him posted. They just said in the post I saw on Instagram about her death revelation, basically saying that it was a man, it was as, not simple, but it wasn't as extreme as a white supremacist doing this, and it was basically someone that was close to her, someone she knew, someone who was in proximity of her, who killed her over something as petty as late rent. And no, a lot of people, lo and behold, the so-called pro-black mushmouths, hoteps on the internet and on YouTube basically said, nope, they're using this man as a cover-up. It was definitely a white supremacist. Now, granted, I was very furious at that because I'm saying, look, it's not always as you think. It's not always as you seem. However, I definitely wouldn't dismiss the fact that they're probably using something like this as a cover-up, but a majority of me, most of me definitely believes that it was something as simple and petty. Same thing with Nipsey Hussle and Eric Holder. It was something as simple and petty as some dispute that people couldn't resolve, some petty beef that people had, and that's why people like Nipsey Hussle and this woman, Sadie, were killed, because you know, a lot of people want to think because of their activism, because of what they've done, that it's some conspiracy of the powers that be coming to attack them. Now, I, of course, would never hold it past them. See, this is the problem with conservatives. A side note, a problem with white supremacists and white supremacy and the powers that be. You have caused so many problems that now when something happens that is not the cause of your end or not on your end, that automatically a default blame. So now when it comes to people who are activists or people who have done good in the community or situations like this, people now automatically rush to blame you. But I feel like that is your fault because you have done a lot of shady and a lot of nefarious things that have caused people to just not take you seriously. So I wouldn't hold it back. But I have to say this to the quote unquote pro-black sector of YouTube, pro-black woke sector of YouTube, I have to call you guys out because a lot of you seem to nowadays lack critical thinking. It's one of the reasons I backed out of this so-called pro-black fake woke movement because I believed in it. I really did believe in it at first, but I think a lot of people are turning into a bunch of mushmouths. A lot of people are digging in too deep. A lot of people are not waiting for more evidence to come out. They look at headlines, run with buzzwords, and just run with a story. They don't do their due diligence until more things come out, and then they still don't believe it. I said this: the case with Sadie is the same thing that happened with Jasmine Barnes, and I made a video about that which I eventually deleted because I got so much hate on it. And I basically said, when we all thought it was this white man that killed this black woman for cutting well, not killed the black woman, but shot at the mother and ended up killing the daughter, we all rushed to the internet saying, oh my god, racism, white supremacy, oh my god, these white supremacists, they really hate us out here. And hate crimes have existed, hate crimes do exist, and they have been increasing, especially in the Trump era. But now it's like people are using that as a default, and you do not want to prove these white supremacists right. You do not want to prove people calling you race baiters right. You do not need to give them any more ammo than they may already have. You do not need to do that. Okay, this is one of the reasons I got tired of the pro-black sector of YouTube or the pro-black sector of the internet or the quote-unquote pro-black movement, the fake woke pro-black movement, because it really seemed like the default blame for everything was racism, white supremacy. There was no fixing things in our community that we can fix, that we needed to fix. There was just all this deflection. Well, not all, because I know for a fact it's not everyone just deflecting when we talk about racism, white supremacy, which we need to talk about racism, white supremacy. However, in cases like Sadie Roberts Joseph, and in cases like Jasmine Barnes, I call that out. I said, you know what, it's really giving racism, white supremacy a win. You do not need to be giving them any more ammo when you do things like this. And then what are you going to do? Blame racism, white supremacy. This man was booked on assaulting a 9-year-old girl, sexually assaulting a 9-year-old girl, and ended up killing this woman over something petty as late rent. And then you had Jasmine Barnes. When we found out it was 2 black men, and I called this out, I was told, oh, your take on it is that racism, white supremacy gets a win. No, my take on it was we look stupid and we wake up with the egg on our face where we can't afford to wake up with the egg on our face because we spend so much time talking about racism, white supremacy, and that when stuff like this unfold, we look stupid. We can't afford that. We can't afford, because it makes our plight look ridiculous. People who already don't take our plight seriously, they look at this and they say, see, this is why we don't take your plight seriously, even though they never have. We just don't need to give them any ammo for them to say that. When it was thought that a white supremacist killed this woman, or a white supremacist killed Jasmine Barnes, or this, especially with that pregnant woman who lost her baby, when we found out that it was at the hands of 2 black men for Jasmine Barnes, who killed Jasmine Barnes in a case of mistaken identity, thinking that this mother was a person they met at a club or something like that. And again, still waiting on more information to come out. But when we felt like this was a white supremacist, the black sector of YouTube, the black sector of the internet was all over it, talking about it, feeling upset, getting in their feelings, commenting in sections, staying in comment sections and going off. But when it was found out to be 2 black men for Jasmine Barnes, and when it was found out to be a black man for Sadie Roberts Joseph, it's all crickets. No one's updating it. No one's talking about it. Especially, this is why I said in my last video, in my Eloho video, when black people are embarrassed, especially you mushmouth, power talking, tough talking black folks, when you're embarrassed, when the egg is on your face, you deflect, you double down, you sweep it under the rug. And of course, again, we're still waiting on more evidence to come out, but still, what I find funny is you guys basically run off with buzzwords. You latched onto buzzwords. You don't read the full headline or the full story. You just take the headline and run with it as if it was the story. Because the first thing that came to your mind, as me as well, I'm guilty of it too. The first thing that came to mind was probably a racist white supremacist. Like when those 3 black churches burned down, 2 things came to my mind. Okay, there are 3 black churches that burned down, but they were in 3 separate locations in the same area, but 3 separate locations kind of far from each other. So I said, 1, this is a hate crime, as we found out it was, or 2, this is arson, because we've seen how some people burn down their churches to get insurance money for arson. So I definitely wouldn't put it past a possible arson and people thinking it's a hate crime. Thank God we found out it was a hate crime, but still, notice how, this is why I don't like people like Umar Johnson and Paris Milan, because they will take this, talk about it, and when more information comes out that debunks everything that they said in the beginning, it's crickets, it's quiet, it's racism, white supremacy is still real, it's deflection. So this is one of the reasons I can't stand mushmouths like Paris Milan. And I say, black women, this is one of the reasons you have people like on Chrissy's page and Crystal and Karen's page kind of holding black men accountable, because stuff like this still comes at our expense as black women. So I can't just get all up in arms when a white man hurts black people or a white person hurts black people. I mean, I'm going to get up in arms. I am going to get up in arms, believe that. However, we can't just keep quiet about one side and be loud about another side, because being quiet about one side, it still comes at our expense as black people. And this was a case of crime based on proximity. So I wouldn't put it past white people, especially the white people in the powers that be, using this as a cover-up. But at the same time, that does not mean that this man wasn't prone to kill this woman, especially if he has past records. And I am not trying to demonize black men or derail from the issue of racism, white supremacy, but stuff like this still comes at our expense as black people, as black women. And just trying to say racism, white supremacy all day is not going to change that side. And no, again, if I have to explain it again for the people who seem to not understand, for you mushmouth pro-blacks on the internet, I have to say that no, I am not derailing or deflecting from the fact or the issue of racism, white supremacy, nor will I ever. But at the same time, we can't sugarcoat our BS or the problems that we create in our community that we can fix that are hurting us because we're dealing with racism, white supremacy. Okay? Again, we do not need to give the other side, we do not need to give the opposing team or racism, white supremacy any more ammo against us. And it seems like when it's an intra-racial crime, it's all crickets. But when it's an interracial crime within our community, it's we make the loudest noise. And look, I hate when people say, what about black on black crime in the case of Black Lives Matter when we're talking about police brutality? I hate when they use that, but at the same time, it's something we still need to fix. So we can't just keep our backyards dirty and then expect everyone to clean out their stuff. We have to do both. We have to do both. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me your thoughts and your opinions about this whole situation. Do you believe it? Do you not believe it? You know, as I said again, I am not against our plight. I am not against the black plight. But it seems like some people who run off with buzzwords think that once you start criticizing black people, specifically black men in our plight, despite our plight, that for some reason we're against them. And that's not the case. So yes, again, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to check out the links down below. Please support me on Patreon, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Bye!